Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Blair Sinta. Welcome to Recording Drums with Blair Sinta. Today my guest is the fantastic Aaron Steele. Awesome human being. Aaron and I, we kind of started off on a personal note. We were just kind of talking and I just hit record and, we got a little bit of that conversation. And, this conversation was really fun because we didn't start recording right away, but we eventually get there. And I think there's a lot of great stuff in here. And Aaron's such a original, unique player, not only as a pop drummer, but as a jazz drummer. He's played with Haley Williams, Jose James, Portugal the Man. He does tons of cool gigs. He's lived in New York, LA, and Nashville. He's got a lot of great things to say. He was actually at Electric Lady in New York City, co-producing a record. He's doing a lot more co-producing these days. And he's got a lot of interesting perspectives on not just recording at home, but recording anywhere. And, the way he records, and he really brings his style, not only drumming-wise, but sonically to a session and the things that he works on. And you'll hear it in his conviction and of what he has to say. All right. So please go to my website if you're interested in courses, Introduction to Recording and Improve Your Groove. They're available there. I'm working on a new course now that'll be available in a few months. Excited about that. I also have a guide to my recording gear at home, and that's a free sign up for my website. You can get down a free PDF download. Link is below. Or if you're on Instagram, it's right above in the bio. If you'd like the podcast, please share it with your friends. Share it on Instagram. Just post about it, whatever. If you're on YouTube, leave comments. Share it with friends, drummers, engineers, producers, whoever you think might enjoy this. And let's listen to my chat with the awesome Aaron Steele. Yeah, I remember talking to you over here like one day, and we kind of like chatted a lot all about like shit that you've gone through and like
yeah. It's
kind of amazing perspective. I mean, it's not good, but it also gives you perspective on life when you have to go through shit when you're young.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, at least for me, there's so much. A lot of people closed up when stuff happens to them, like trauma or whatever.
Yeah.
But and I think that I did for a long time, and at a certain point, I was like scared all the time, and I figured out. I was like, "Yo, why, why do that?" Like I was like, "Why am I scared to like be myself, or why am I scared to ask to play this gig, or ask to play with this person, or or go somewhere?" It's like any of that stuff. Like, why am I scared of that? Like, we should just, if you want to do something and it's not hurting anybody else, then do it. What's the point? What else is there?
Right.
Just for the experience, if not anything else.
And if you can like, I think we all have that. I mean, it's funny. It's interesting to hear you say that because for me, I'm definitely kind of guarded, what I mean? But at the same time, I moved out to LA and I knew like 3 people, and off to college I knew like nobody. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's just and you take gigs all the time. You're like, I don't know a single person on this gig, but
exactly,
I'm stick with them. And then by the end of the night, some new people, and times out of 10, you're like connecting with like a whole bunch of new people. So,
and sometimes it's like lifelong. You end up having a lifelong friend from like that weird situation that maybe it was the worst gig you've ever played. But then like that person got you onto like the craziest gig ever, or like that person like introduced you to like somebody that like will have changed your life or whatever,
I found out a couple times too. There were many like this happened to be a handful of times, especially when I was younger, whereas like there were nights I was like, I don't want to go out, man. I don't feel like leaving the house. But I did. Yeah. And all of a sudden it was like just exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I met somebody and I ended up being in a band with them for 3 years, or who knows? Like a connection that leads you to somewhere else. And
I mean, life is I like to say life is complete chaos, you know? It's like it really is, and like our feeble human minds are here specifically to um like our feeble human minds can't comprehend the chaos, so it just tries to find paths through it, you know? It's like, oh yeah, this is a through line. So it just connects all these dots just because it needs to see things in a consistent fashion, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Well, yeah, it's gonna make that connection around every roadblock.
Yeah, exactly. And
Hopefully,
yeah,
right?
hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, you
You
have
know,
resilience to do that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, this is a weird point. Sorry, I'm like in the machine room at a studio.
We're gonna talk about that in a minute.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's definitely like some. I've been sort of having this conversation with people in Nashville a lot, where um, it's weird to them that they like improvise music or whatever. And I was like, man, like we improvise every day. Every single person improvises every day.
Mhm.
Like every decision you make is an improvised decision based on like your history and your background, like what coffee shop you go to and shit like that, you know.
Right.
So it's kind of like I get like really frustrated sometimes when people are just like not willing to take chances because like I'm like, you take a chance walking out your door every day, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
literally.
yeah, 1000%. Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm like, it blows my mind when people, especially in music, are like, I don't know, that's a little too whatever. And I'm just like, well, let's see if it's good or not. You know, like let's see, try. You know?
All right, so let's transition it. Not let's lead that to like the recording. So you moved to Nashville what 2 years ago now?
3.5 years ago.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Like COVID.
COVID is a lost year.
Yeah, exactly. It's nuts, man. Anyway, but yeah, 3.5 years ago. Yeah.
All right, so how are you finding like specifically the recording scene in Nashville? I would imagine because you're you and you have, I mean, you're pretty defined and stylistically that you're kind of
Yeah.
be able to get to do what you do. But are you
Yeah.
finding
It's
it different from working in LA?
Oh, substantially different. Okay, so this is what's happened in my life. Right before COVID, I started working with a producer. His name is Tyler Johnson. He did like Harry Styles, and he did like Watermelon Sugar and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But he lives in he was living in Nashville. Like he's in between Nashville and LA, and we were just working together on stuff, and he kind of was like, yo, like you should start producing stuff. So he started bringing me in on sessions. So since being in Nashville, I've actually been more on the producer role than just as a session drummer, which has been great. But I have done sessions like for a couple pop country things and like just some demos here and there, and like overall, the session scene is very different. People talk about everything before they do it,
Mm-hmm.
which is a kind of it blows my mind actually,
Mm-hmm.
because they never like try things. Well, it's not. This is a oversimplification. It's
Sure,
like
I get it. Yep. Yep.
but everybody talks about what something needs to be before they even try doing it, and and I'm like, sometimes you don't know what something needs to be in uh until it makes itself evident. Like you have to do it
Mm-hmm.
first, and then we're like, oh well, that's kind of this vibe, and then it solidifies. But
Mm-hmm.
I was doing a session kind of recently, and there were these two. I won't.
Yeah. Careful.
Like yeah, there are these two musicians that they both play the same chordal instrument, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were we were doing like an improvised piece for a record. It was
Okay.
just, and they just needed to come up with like a couple chords and leave the rest to me actually.
Mm-hmm.
And
As a drummer.
as a drummer, yeah. And there was also another musician who was playing another choral instrument, and we were like, and yeah, I know, I'm being so big, but then he starts off a vibe, and the other two people cannot like just improvise around the vibe in order to just get something. They needed to stop the thing a million times in order to just figure out what exact chords each other were playing. They couldn't just use their ears.
Right. Right.
And to me, that's like the seventh circle of hell. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, hey, we're just trying to get something down and feel something,
Right.
as opposed to like if you can't just like use your what is it,
Intuition.
yeah, exactly, and your music, like you're a everyone that has made it to where we are in life
Mm-hmm.
is capable of so much musically, because you wouldn't be able to have a career if you weren't.
Right.
So these people just didn't trust themselves enough to just go with the flow, and it drove me crazy, actually. I actually got up off the drums for a while, like maybe like 20 minutes, while they just like worked the thing out. And then when I thought they were done, they were just like, "Oh, where's the drummer?" I was like, "Oh, I'm right here. I'm just sitting on the couch."
Right.
you know.
Right. So
And I ended up working out, but
yeah. So of course this couldn't be just a Nashville LA thing, because that's not a
no,
that's not what it's about, right? But it's like
no.
But
That's how I felt when I first went to LA, and it changed pretty drastically.
really, you felt
Yeah.
like that?
I very much felt like that.
Interesting.
But not in that same way. Like, people improvised in LA, and like people like they didn't talk about stuff. It was like different issues. Like
Okay.
I mean, okay, so background on me, I'm from New York. And I'm from New
Enough
York
said.
City. I'm from New York City. I came up playing all sorts of kinds of music, and I don't believe in rules in music. So I feel like if something works, then it works. That's so there's no there it, like so. But when I moved to LA, I found myself in a lot of situations where people were just trying to do, especially in sessions, they were just trying to do whatever was the thing that was like popular at the moment. That changed over time.
As far
but
as like references,
as far as references, like, yeah, like I remember, like, maybe the first session I did in LA, like it was, I don't know, 2011, 2010 or something like that. And it was like there was a Band of Horses song that was out. And I went into the session, and somebody was like, "I want to do like a Band of Horses kind of vibe." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I played a thing that's kind of like Band of Horses, but they were like, "Actually, can you just play the exact thing?"
right,
And I'm like, "Well, then just get that dude. I mean, he's great,
right,
But also, like the song ended up just being the same song in a different key,
yeah,
which that I feel like that happens, depending on the person. But that was like my experience for a while when I first started working in LA. And then I think that my situation musically is very different from a lot of people, because I'm not out there just trying to get every gig. I'm like, I try to be, what's the word? I try to be fulfilled in every situation that I'm in. So it's not even if I can't afford to financially,
okay,
because I grew up basically in abject poverty. So like, I'm never gonna get to that point where I was at when I was a kid ever again.
right.
So
You have a comfort level now that you know that you're gonna.
yeah, and also like, my comfort level is like my threshold is way lower than most people's, because like, Like, let's say I can have $100 in my bank account, and be like, oh shit, and I'll be like, all right, well, I'll get some work, whatever, it's fine. You know, like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not to say that that's happening, but that's
Right.
like, that's just that's like, I'm okay with that
Yeah.
if I can make something that I believe in,
Right.
you know. But also, I don't have children. Also, like but
I
that
don't think
being,
anybody needs to qualify that. You know what I mean? I think
yeah.
that's a choice as an artist that you're making. That's great. You know what I
I
mean?
mean, I guess so. I mean, like I think it's I don't think it's like a yes or no or great or bad thing. I think it's just a very neutral thing. It's just how I am. It's like
Yeah.
my brain doesn't work any other way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and like, because like I have a bunch of friends that I really love and believe in that will take any gig all the time,
Mhm.
and I think that's a quality that I wish I had at a certain point, like I was like, oh my God, like there were points where I was like, I was so broke, like early in my career. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, I can't eat, blah, blah, whatever.
Right.
I just wish I could play any gig without making a face,
Right.
you know?
Right.
I was playing with an artist, playing with a big pop artist like years and years ago. Won't say who it was, and we were on like Good Morning America or something like that. And my friend was filming me playing like on TV and zooming in on my face with like an early iPhone. And I just looked like I was trying to die. Like I was like, oh my God, why am I here? I was like, I immediately quit that band and moved. I had moved to LA briefly, and I moved back to New York.
Oh,
And
wow.
I just started playing with like my friends' bands,
Right.
like just bands in town. And all those bands ended up doing really well and becoming popular. And I think it's because I believed in them.
Sure.
It's not only that I believed in them, but I feel like you should do things that, at least my theory of the case is, do things that you believe in, and if you put that energy into it, it will come back in droves for,
Sure.
you know.
Sure.
But you can't do that in a way like, well, if I'm doing this thing, I'm gonna get this. You have to do it because you believe in it, and then
Right.
that's it,
It's a different mental side of things of like it's almost like forcing it as opposed to just believing in it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you put the work in because you believe in it.
Yeah, and you put the work in not because you believe you're gonna keep that gig later, or because
The moment, right?
Yeah, it's just in the moment. Yeah, I'd be like, I believe in this thing, I'm gonna do it until I can't, and then that's it. And because I did that with so many artists, I ended up getting hired in LA for things like, when I still lived in New York, for things that I really liked in LA, because people were associating me with things that I believed in. So I ended up getting more and more things that I was like, oh, that's great. Even
Right.
in Nashville, like when I moved to Nashville, I ended up playing on Haley Williams' record.
Right.
Like, I didn't really know them from a hole in the wall. Like I knew her music. I knew Paramore. I
Yet the solo record is very different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And on that record, they like, Taylor, who produced it, called me kind of from out of the blue, and they wanted somebody who didn't sound like they were from Nashville. Like, they're just like, hey, and I had just moved there,
Right.
so like, I didn't understand how they ended. I was like, I was in Slovenia when they called me, because I was on tour with Jose James,
Yeah.
and it was like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, I'm gonna be back like literally 2 days before you start recording, so yeah, sure, let's do it.
Cool.
And they were just like, yeah, we just want you to do your thing. And I was like, oh, great. And
So
I was like,
was that at home or was that in a
it was in a studio. It was at, we recorded most of it at, what do we call it? It was called House of Blues in Nashville. But it's in the Blackbird ecosystem.
Okay.
It's like directly across the street from Blackbird.
It's funny because I think I texted you right after I listened to that record, and I didn't know it was you at first.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Whoa, this is like cool." Like everything about it was cool. Like, you know, on the drum side, it was like sounds were cool. The parts were really interesting. It was still pop oriented, you know. And I looked it up and I saw it was you, and I was like, "Oh man!" And I think I texted you, and I was like, "Dude, this is great." And I was like, "Whoa!" But my first thought was like, "Wow, did you do this at home?" Because to me, it's so creative that I was like, only you could have done this if you were just by yourself and they just let you go. You know what I mean?
Well, okay. So there are a few elements that have to be. I have to just say, because this is the Haley Taylor and Carlos de la Garza, who is the engineer and mixer on all that stuff. That and then Joey, who is the bass player, and oh my god, like, and he wrote a bunch of those songs with Haley. So what got and he's the touring bass player for Paramore.
Okay,
but that mixture of people in the studio together, and it's like all of us love crazy weird sounds.
Yeah,
that's just like what it is.
Yeah.
And then Carlos, whenever I would say something to him, because I would just try and do stuff, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I got you," you know, like, and he would, I would like, I brought in a bunch of my crazy mics and all this stuff, and they were just my weird drum machines and whatever.
Okay, so you did some of the programming.
Yeah, some, yeah.
Okay, because that's part of the beauty of that record is how the drum sounds, the parts, and the programming just work so incredibly together, and they play off each other.
Yeah, we really went down the rabbit hole with a lot of that stuff, and thank you, Taylor, for like trusting me to just do that stuff. I would be like, yeah, man, like I'm trying. Yeah, I was like, yo, I play drums, but like I don't like to just. I'm not a person who's like, oh yeah, like I'll just play. I can play what people ask me. I'll do that all the time, but I want to be collaborative because. Yeah. I mean, I think that's why like my life has been leading me down the production route, because even though like I was fighting it so hard, but that's like where I'm ending up now, you know.
Right. It's where you're sitting.
Yeah, it's where I'm sitting. Yeah. It's weird. I'm currently at Electric Lady.
Oh, are you really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Are you downstairs?
Yeah, I mean, I'm at B.
Yeah, cool. It's funny because I know at the top when there's sunlight up there, and you don't look like you have any sunlight right now.
Not at all. None. I'm definitely in the darkest corner.
Yeah. So, did your home recording? Were you able to help shape like the Haley record as far as engineering? Was that collaborative at all?
As far as engineering with Carlos, it was definitely collaborative. As far as like what we were going for and like what sounds we were trying to achieve.
Yep.
Like, I also was like, yeah, like maybe we should go like for this. Maybe we should use the Electrodyne EQs or whatever.
Yep.
Those are my favorite on snare drum, by the way.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, but I didn't do any of that at home, so.
Okay.
But I do work on quite a bit of records from home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, a lot of the thing that I love to try to learn from people through this process is how you're able to like your own, you know, kind of practice or work at home.
Yeah.
In an engineering recording sense.
Yeah.
You're able to take that into actual recording studios, whether it's mic placement, mic choice.
Yes.
Tuning, EQ. Yeah. You know, like, hey, can we put some distortion on this sound or whatever? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I very much in my life, as far as going and doing sessions with other places, I actually much rather do sessions at my house, to tell you the truth, because I know how to get sounds that I enjoy, you know, and sounds that I believe, you know, but when I do sessions at other places, like I definitely bring my bag of tricks.
Yeah.
Oh, hey. Uh, um, what you got? I definitely bring my bag of tricks of like mics and or even just like, hey, like, can we just yeah, everybody does this now, but can we just get like a dick mic happening and like and just like
Right.
run it through what you got, or
Compress it or distort it.
yeah,
Or
compressor or distorted or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, often I bring I didn't bring it on this trip, but I often bring Dr. Alien Smith is like a mic builder, but I bring the
I got to
dirt
get
mic.
one of those, man.
Yeah, I bring the dirt mic
Yeah.
kind of like everywhere.
Yeah.
Actually, you don't even need to bring the mic anymore because he makes a little like phantom powered distortion box that you can plug in
Right.
any microphone into, which
Yep.
I'm very into.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was bringing that. I bring that kind of most sessions, and it kind of does the thing already. But then when you run that through EQ
Yeah.
and stuff, like it really kind of makes a drum sound.
Yeah.
Itself.
And so you're often helping guide that,
Yes,
at least that mic sound. Yeah.
Yeah, 1,000%. And everything else is for me actually like that's the sound, and then everything else is just in order to clear it up. Everything else is the dry knob on the dry or wet mix. It's like so.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that's the only sound, but if it's not, it doesn't have to be distorted all the time.
Right. Right.
But that is like the picture that
Yeah.
I'm trying to get. I want it to feel like you're inside the drum set, and no matter what that is, it's like as long as the and this is very much music dependent,
Yeah.
but
And like, if you're gonna go work with somebody that you've never worked with,
yeah,
and you let's say you don't know the project,
yeah,
are you gonna bring some mics?
yeah.
Are you gonna ask about? Are you gonna feel out the engineer and say like, hey, check it out, or are you just gonna maybe gently offer some thoughts?
I'm not gentle, man.
Oh, okay.
No, but I'm not gentle because like I don't. I mean, like, man, we're all there for the same goal, and I'm always collaborative. So I'm not I'm not
You just
like,
go in.
I just go in. I'm just like, yo, how about we do this thing?
Right.
Like, and be like, oh, sure. And I'll be like, yeah. I was like, let's try it out. Trust me. And if it doesn't work out, we'll just strike it.
Turn it
whatever.
off. Yeah.
Just turn it off.
Yeah.
And I'd say about like 95% of the time, it always stays in.
Yeah.
And like, and I'm even talking about like just weird shit. Like, I don't know. Like I have a mic often that I'll just lay. It's like a 57 that's just across the room, pointed at the wall, but on the floor. It's like, and that's like a room sound I use often, even in my little one room studio.
So you're like sculpting your own sound when you walk into a session.
More often than not, yeah. But it's definitely collaborative.
Yeah,
like I'm not.
You're not just taking over.
Yeah, I'm not just taking over because, like, number one, like I can't listen to myself play while EQing and stuff like that. And I think that every and I'm lucky that I just get to work with like really dope engineers.
Yeah.
But also anybody can become a dope engineer. Like I didn't know how to record like years ago, and
None of us did.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
like, and the only reason that I started doing it was because like I just needed to figure out how to record from home. And it wasn't because like people would just ask me like, hey, do you have a home setup? And I'll be like, no, I don't, but I probably should.
Yeah.
And it was
You had a big loft space in LA, right? When you were here.
I did have a big loft space, and then but it was just like I didn't have any sound separation or anything. So it was like you just got the room,
Okay.
in it.
Yeah.
And before that, I had a little practice space in West LA, like next to like Elitch and everybody.
Yeah.
And I would have to record at like 6 a.m.
Yeah.
because like Matt Garsko would be practicing like next door,
Right.
or actually like right next to me there was a band of dads that were like playing No Diggity like
Wow.
a rock version of No Diggity, and
Yeah.
like, you could hear them cheersing their beers and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Rigs of dads.
Oh my God, it was so deep. And then I was working on a film score, and I was just like, "Yo, guys, like it is 1:30 in the morning. Let me work."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's
but
great.
yeah, I know. But I don't disparage anybody for having fun playing No Diggity.
I don't think we're worried about that. We're just talking about,
Yeah, I know.
maybe it's time to knock it off. So
Yeah, so I can get my smooth brush sounds. Yeah, in this tiny ass room. Anyway, but yeah, so like that's kind of
so is your setup now in Nashville more involved than it was in LA, or did it
substantially more involved.
Okay.
Like because I have a lot more shit now. Actually, okay. Anybody that actually knows me knows that for a number of years I didn't really live anywhere because I was just on tour so much, and I would just buy shit. Mm-hmm. And I would leave them at studios, leave them at people's places. I have drum sets all around the United States. I have like random pieces of outboard gear all around. Well, and when I moved to Nashville,
you made a lot of phone calls.
yes, or I would just pick stuff up when I was on tour,
right.
like and basically when I was in LA, I met my partner, and she kind of made me like solidify my life a little bit because I was very, transient. Mm-hmm. So like I stopped moving around so much. I mean, I still go on tour and I still work with people. I'm still all over the place, but I have to have like a solid place to live because I live with her. So,
not a bad thing.
That's not a bad thing. Yeah. I know how to do laundry again, you know? Instead of just buying new clothes, but that being said, but when we moved to Nashville, like I was like, okay, well, let me get like a room together, like a really, really solid room together. And I got like this, we were renting at first, and I was just in like the middle bedroom in my house, and I started making some pretty, and like I got really deep into like what I liked. Mm-hmm. I already knew like I really love, like I love Electrodyne. I love Electrodyne. There's just something about those preamps, about those EQs. The very first like professional recording session I ever did. Actually, it's not the first one, but it's the one that sticks out in my mind. This producer named Yeston Polson kind of took me under his wing. He did like David Gray's like what is it?
The Big Hit.
Yeah, he did White Ladder. White. Yes.
I know the tune, but I can't remember the title either. Yeah.
Yeah, he produced that record, and he was living in New York. He's and he met me, super green, like 20-something-year-old kid, or like 20-year-old. I was 20. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then he just like put me on like all of the sessions that he had in New York. But the very first one we did was at his like him and his partner's studio, and there was just a 60s Electrodyne board. And if you know anything about New York, you just show up at a studio and there's a drum set there. You bring your own cymbals and snare, and that's it.
Right.
And I get there, and the 60s Electrodyne board, and all of the drums are mic'd with 57s, which is like such a vibe.
Yeah.
Which I think it's hilarious now thinking about it, because like it's, people talk about it.
Right.
But like this is what happened with me, and it was made to this day. I think it's still one of the best drum sounds that I've ever heard. Just straight up, into like 2-band EQ, Electrodyne board with a 2-band EQ and Electrodyne pre's, no compression, just that, on this.
Did you sculpt those drums? Like, do you remember?
At the time, no, I tuned them. Yeah. I definitely tuned them. I tuned them, and I'm a person who really likes. Obviously, a lot of us do, but I really like dead sounds. Mm-hmm. I do the open thing, but a song really has to like call for that for me to be into it.
It's
But
interesting because I was actually gonna ask you about that because listening to some stuff that you've recorded and just watching your Instagram page, I'm like, man, Aaron likes the dry thing and you
yeah,
do it really well.
yeah. Oh, thanks.
But
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But it feels like a style for me.
yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean?
I mean, I'd say
For you.
I'd say stylistically, yes, it is. I think it is a style because I'm very much like. But the thing is, like, I primarily work in pop music. There's so much.
That's definitely the sound right now.
Yeah, but also there's so much programming
Right.
that we've got big. Okay, so this is where my brain goes with this sort of stuff. Often, let's say if I'm working on a record or somebody hires me for a record, more often than not, the programming is like programming. We either do the programming or whatever. We're usually adding drums in order to give life to it. So I do the dry thing, but I use mainly the room sound in order to like give air that's moving around in the room to all the programming. And then the dry sound is actually like not like yes, on Instagram I'll post like the close mics or whatever. But more often than not, what you got, that's not even in the mix, when the song ends up being done. It's just like room air moving, and the dry sound is just sort of so the room mics are not getting all of the ring of like the sympathetic notes of all the drums. It's more just for the room to be activated by.
So you're saying you put the programming through the rooms or
No, the drums I play drums along with the programming.
Yeah.
But I mainly use the room mics in order to give air behind the programming.
I see. So you're saying it's almost to make it human. You're adding just enough so it doesn't sound like you're competing with samples or a drum machine. It's like
exactly.
Or
yeah, exactly. Or, I often I also make a lot of my own samples. So, because, yes, I really do like dead dry sounds.
Yeah.
I'm a child that grew up listening to underground hip hop, it's like, but also I love big rock sounds because like I'm a fucking hardcore kid, I used to, I mean,
but the hardcore thing is not necessarily big drum sounds. It's more like just trashy and nasty, right?
Yeah. Well, it depends on what era you're talking about, but you're true. You're right. But there is like, I don't know. But then I when I say hardcore, what I really mean is like emo screamo shit.
Okay.
Because a lot of that stuff is pretty. I mean, if you listen to like early At the Drive-In records, that's like really weird room sounds,
Yeah.
And I love that stuff, but there needs to be a context for it,
Right.
And I feel like a lot of times, often drummers will just do stuff because they think it's cool, but they don't do it in the context of this song. Like I was having a conversation with some friends a while ago and I was like, yeah, like even now, like this is really dumb. It's not like, and I think this is a preference thing, but because I'm working on, like whatever records, like really constantly at MySpace, I kind of have a kit up and I use the mics in order to change the sound. Like I use like the combination of mics. But I do change the snare drum and I do change cymbals because I feel like that's the most important. But otherwise, I use like the combination of different mics in order to shape a sound. So like, oh man, if I really want a tight, like super focused dry thing, I'll be like, okay, well, I'll use my mono mic that's over my head. I'll use my kick out, and then I'll use like the snare top and snare bottom. I don't know why people don't like to use snare bottom sometimes because I think it makes the drum so much fatter. That's all I'm saying. But often I'll use that, and then I'll use like, my crotch mic, and I'll also use like a weird. I have like a PP1 telephone mic from Trash Talk. I'll use that kind of like far away, EQ'd a little bit, in order to like get just enough color that because it's pretty staccato, like if you're trying to get like a tight sound. But then if I want a big roomy sound, or if I want just like a little bit more life, I'll just like roll my towels up a little bit, and then I'll just use the stereo overheads up top, and then bring up the distortion on the Trash Talk, and EQ the not the Trash Talk on the crotch mic, and then EQ the trash mic a little brighter, and my rooms through obviously Transient Designer because I don't have a huge room. Or actually, I open up my door because, like, in my house, like I have like vaulted ceilings. But that's only in my living room. So, and my studio's off to the side of the living room. So I just open up my door and just put AA stereo ribbon in there.
So do you feel like do you have a regular, kind of a fairly standard setup, or are you kind of re-sculpting the mic placements every time?
Never. I'm never replacing. The only time I replace is when I want to clean my room, or if I'm like, but I basically
so your mics stay more or less.
My mics stay,
Okay,
my mics
but
stay,
you're really going about it with EQ.
Yeah, with EQ and like towels on, towels off. And snare drums.
Yeah, of course.
Snare drums are so important. I think that for as much as like I'm slowly becoming like this person where I'm just like, I play the same shit all the time. Because I wasn't for a while, but I said this to I did a podcast with Mike Dawson a while ago, and I was telling him is like when I moved to LA, because you needed to bring kits to sessions, like people would always tell me like, oh well, you got to have like multiple kits, in order to like do a bunch of different sounds or whatever.
Right.
And I mean that's true, I guess, but I think you can do that with. I mean, growing up in New York and playing around in New York, you had to do that when you played gigs with one drum set. You know.
Yeah.
And it didn't need and there's no way it was going to be a big drum set because you're not lugging that around.
Not hauling your 24-inch kick to a club.
Exactly. So like I learned some of this from Pelton years ago. Like he was playing at Rockwood, and he brought like just a couple things in order to like change the sound depending on the song. Like he would be, he had, at the time there was no big fat snare drum. So he had like cut out snare drum head size, but he had it for every drum.
Right.
So like, he'd be like, oh, this song needs really deep, gushy toms, you know?
Yeah.
So he was like, all right. So I put them out and he used them on the toms, and it was like, oh, these toms sound insane.
Yeah.
And the next song was high and tight. Right. I was like, man, and he did it all with one drum set. The only thing that changed, the only thing that didn't change, that would need to change maybe in a certain situation is the kick drum. But at MySpace, like there's two kits that are up. There's one kit right now that's like a tight Noble and Cooley, thing at the moment, the Union series. Shout out to Noble and Cooley. And then that's kind of like the standard kit that's up right now.
Okay.
And and it's like innocuous sizes that like everybody has, like 12, 16, 22.
Right.
I hate 22s, but this kit sounds good.
Okay.
The only reason I say I hate 22 is because I feel like it's non-committal. I'm like, I like if you do a 20, do a 24. Like, that's kind of normally how, if you see me on tour, I'm usually playing a 20 or a 24.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I know.
I love it, dude. I love that. Yeah. I'm offended, but that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for me, that's just kind of just always how it's been. But anyway, it's either that or it's like this Ludwig oak uh, little bop kit, like 18, 12, 14.
Cool.
And I use that when I'm trying to get either like crazy 808 sounds or
Yeah.
I'm playing a jazz thing.
Yeah, the
Like,
18s. I love 18s, man.
man,
I
they're
use
the
them more and
best.
more. And I have two,
Yeah.
one with a hole and one without.
Yeah.
And I almost feel, except sometimes there's like a little extra
Yes.
low end that you can't get. But
Yeah.
man, I could almost do probably 75% of my sessions with those.
I agree, 1000%. Also, like I said, I do a lot of processing. Not always, but
Yeah.
but man, if you're trying to get some guttural, like hip hop shit,
Yeah.
throw a little bit of transient designer on that kick drum
Yeah.
on an 18 with a little bit like a felt strip muffling. Like I have bandanas on all my drums. Like,
Yeah.
Like just on all my bass drums, just like as a felt strip, just on and that kick drum sounds insane. Like it's nuts, but yeah, man, like I really and also, like I love 18s just because of the way they feel. It makes me play differently.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that being said, but more often than not, you'll see me with a 20 out on the road or yeah, I have like the weirdest sizes. It's dumb. It's like, I think it's like 20. My touring kit is a Q.
Yeah.
Is a Q maple that I had Jeremy kind of make as like kind of like a Rogersy kind of vibe. Pre CBS for all the nerds. But that kind of vibe, because you can use it on kind of like whatever kind of music, but it's a 20 shallow. I love shallow kick drums. 12 by 20 kick or a 10 by 24.
Yeah.
And then my toms are 13, 15, 18.
Okay. Oh, 15, huh? Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I like 14s, but I always feel like if I'm trying, I always feel like there's not enough. Even if I tune it low, I feel like there's not enough low end.
Where's the beef?
Yeah, exactly. So just that one extra inch gives me a little bit of great Wendy's reference, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I actually toured with a 13, 15, 18 too for years. Yeah.
Yeah.
An AI.
What did you have? Oh, did you have what were your thoughts on that?
I don't know if I ever got used to it. I will say I had an incredible tech at the time. This guy, Peter Moffat. He always made those drums sound like amazing. I never felt comfortable with it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Is it, do you think it's, because I this is a question I have about most things in life. Do you think it's indoctrination?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. I think, well, here's the thing. I think if I could go back to it now, I don't own that kit anymore. If I could go back to it now, it might make more sense to me.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think I don't think my knowledge of tuning was as good as it is now, or just sonic manipulation of a drum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So to me, it just felt awkward. It's not like I was thinking about it all the time, but it was just it's not a 14 and it's not a 16. And fortunately, I was not in the position where I was,
Yeah, you were doing the tuning and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was tweaking a little, but my guy Peter was like, just made him sound amazing, and that's all that mattered. So
man.
It'd be interesting to go back now. I kind of actually wish I never sold that kit, especially the snare. But it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It is. Yeah. I mean, know, there's man. This is a sad story I'm about to tell you because. So, like I said, for many moons, I didn't really live anywhere, and I just had a bunch of stuff. There's one kit. Yeah, it was a LA Camco kit that I put into main drag. I bought it for $400 off of Craigslist.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. It was a 24, 14, 18.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Sounded incredible.
Yeah.
And I basically put it into consignment at Mandrag for way too much money. Because I was like, oh, well, I just need to store it somewhere. And I didn't have a place to store it at all because I lived in New York and there's just not any space anywhere. So I was like, okay, way too much money at Mandrag. I came back from tour and somebody had bought it the day before. So I made a bunch of money.
Right.
And coming back from tour and making that much money on top of the tour money, I was like, okay, I'm okay with this, but I'm also, but I'm like, I think back on it, I was like, oh, that's like maybe one of the ones that I like feel bad about. But at this point, I'm kind of in the zone where I'm trying to sell a lot of stuff because I'm just not using it. You know?
I'm in a similar place, and it's not easy to sell things right now. So
yeah. I mean, you know, like I'm not. Also, like a lot of the stuff that I have, people don't care about it because they're not trendy. But you know, but then people ask me like, "What was that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's this." They're like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's the best thing ever."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, like people still like one of the kits that's on like most records that I work on is like pearl wood fiberglass kit.
Yeah. I know.
I bought it for $400. I saw one the other day for $500. It's one of the best sounding things out there.
Those kits sound amazing.
Yeah, and I'm talking about old ones.
Yeah,
not the ones that came out like
the OG 70s. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How much are you recording at home in Nashville as opposed to
in the studios?
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah,
like if I'm at home, I'm recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you producing out of your house too?
Yeah.
Or are you trying to? Or would you rather be in a quote unquote real studio if you're producing, or doesn't it matter to you?
I'd rather be at home.
Okay.
Because I go to the only reason I would go to a studio is if I'm tracking a full band live.
Yeah.
And or if somebody wants like that Neve 47 vocal thing.
Yeah.
Because basically I built out my space to be like creation space. It's like there's a bunch of stuff in here that nobody cares about or that are like is really unique. You can get like really special sounds. It's not a space to get like the same thing that everybody's going after. Yeah. Because like every studio has, a rack of knees and what you got,
it's almost like a weird trap, right?
Yeah.
A weird trap for like creating something unique because the mic setup goes up before you get there.
Exactly.
You bring your drums in, and then unless there's like a concerted effort of like, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then people basically tell you what something's like going to sound like before you get there.
Yeah. It's funny because I did something recently and there was a whole discussion of like, let's go minimal mics, and it showed up and there was literally 17 mics on the kit.
That's amazing. And
it was kind of like, it wasn't my decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, that's where we're going. Cool. But I always thought like the particular record was about vibes.
Yeah.
And like, to me, it was like, no. We got to make minimal artistic choices to create, let's do it now. Let's not do it later. Let's get in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, well, people are so afraid of committing.
Yeah.
Like that's like, man, even in Pro Tools or Ableton or whatever, when I'm working on stuff, I commit. I'll come up with something, I'll commit it right away to audio, and then I will do even more stuff to it, commit that, and then like I'm like, all right, cool, we're good.
Right.
And then people are like, what's that sound? I'm like, yeah, like can we like change this? I was like, well, we can do something else. And like I've saved some of this stuff in the back, but I'm like,
sure.
But I'm not about like I'm not about that sort of like, oh yeah, like well we could change it later. Because I think there's something really.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No. I think there's something special about committing to something because that means you believe in it. Like this just goes back to the thing. It's like, man, like some of the most special things that's ever happened in my life or musically have been complete and utter mistakes. Mm-hmm. That have just like ended up being like, oh my God, yes, this is great. You know?
And that is the common theme that is missing in music creation these days.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
allowing the mistake, first of all, to even happen.
Yeah.
And second of all, not just being like, okay, you blew it. Like let's get another take.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
oh, maybe it should be left in because it's a mistake, or maybe that mistake was made because it should be something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, well, the thing is, like, I also, like, there's this thing about right and wrong. Like, oh, that's the wrong way to do this, or that's the right way to do this. I was like, man, like, the thing that we do for a living, or even for those of you who don't do it for a living, that you do when you make music, is completely subjective.
Yeah.
So there is no right and wrong. What we do is completely subjective. So when somebody tells you that you're doing the wrong thing, like in for a song or whatever, that's literally their opinion. I think that you have to take it into consideration, especially if you're being a supportive character as as a drummer or any musician. You have to, because then you're just being a dick. But more often, but like if you're creating music, you have to just do it based on what you believe in, unless like you're getting hired to do a very specific task.
Right.
But that's a whole separate thing. But what we do is subjective. Everything we do is subjective. So you have to understand that, because people will, like, I've had people like, oh, that's the wrong way to do that thing, or that's the wrong way to use that compressor, that's the wrong way to this. I'm like, but it's getting me the sound that I want.
Yeah.
That's why I like,
Yeah.
then it ends up, like unless I'm going to break it,
Yeah.
what you got, then it's fine.
There's a really fine line in what you're saying, because so especially with the home studio recording thing.
Yeah.
Is because what you're saying is like you'll commit on top of
commit.
Yeah.
But if you're sending out to people, that's the whole thing. Yeah.
Which is really tricky. So it's like finding the balance of maybe the people that you work with and you're cool. They know that you're gonna send the errand thing and they're gonna be cool with it.
Yeah. I mean, more often.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But there's that thing of like,
yeah.
Hey man, can you use the Black Beauty and like?
Yeah, I mean, well, and nobody asked me that in my life. Even
but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like most people are just like, at least for me, they're like, "Can you play drums on this thing?"
Right.
And I'm like, "Sure." Like, are you looking for anything specific? And they're just like, they send me like a kind of like whatever reference.
Yeah.
I'll do the thing, and then like I'm not like processing so much that it's unmixable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
But there's always like one channel. It's always like one channel, two channels. This is especially if I'm not involved in the production of it.
Right. I think that's the real trick.
That's the real trick. Yeah. So I like like I said, my life is shifting more and more to the world that I'm involved in the production of most of the things that I do. Mm-hmm. But I've been a session drummer for years, you know, and that being said, like, that stuff is, like, I still want stuff to sound dope. I'm not like, you can always EQ something, but I don't really do that much EQ when I'm doing like a session thing. I'm just like, okay, well, this is just the drum flat, and these are these mics flat, but just through these preamps, and they sound great. The Electrodynes sound great, and I'm just gonna say that again. Electrodynes sound great. Another company that's incredible, Iron Age Audio, their QP5 preamp, so good, so good, and it's very cheap. It's like $420 for a 500 series, and I use those in my overheads, and I love them.
Wow,
and my toms.
Okay, so when you're producing, have you hired another drummer? Have you
I haven't yet, but that's something that I really want to do. It's just like the budgets haven't really allowed for it at the moment. Actually, some have, but I've been I've been the person in the room who I'm not the only producer in those situations. I'm usually like one of the co-producers, and they usually just want me to play drums or do weird drum stuff.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense.
yeah. But I like there's a project that I'm working on right now that I really want to get my friend Terrence Clark to play drums because he has like that Memphis like swagger that is like insane. It's so good. I mean, he's one of my favorite drummers.
Okay.
But also like there's a bunch of like like I'm working on a few like kind of indie rock records.
Yep.
I can do it. But like I kind of want to hire somebody who feels time way different than I do. Because I feel time in like really tiny increments.
Yep.
Yeah, subdivision. Yeah. And somebody who has like a way wider beat than me like will sound way better on this stuff. And like I said, that's subjective, but
but that's musical maturity to recognize that and also be able to look at yourself and go like, yeah, I can do it, but the way I really want it to feel, it might be better if, so and so does it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, also like my musical history is like weird, like coming up in screamo bands, growing up in Spanish Pentecostal church, like touring with like Portugal, touring with like whatever, like doing all that stuff. Like it's varied. So like even though I sound like me, like it works in a lot of contexts, but it's still like not the same as like when there's like, for example, in Portugal the Man, when I was playing in that band, it sounded really good, but that band sounds the best with Jason, who's the original drummer. That band, like that's the band I fell in love with.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So like the fact that he's in the band again and like slaying it, his feel is so good. Anyway, like that.
It's funny because I can think of like 2 or 3 bands immediately where, either somebody left the band or somebody couldn't do a tour and someone else came in, somebody who was reputable and great.
Yeah.
But
they lost the thing.
Yeah. It's like whether it's just how they hit the drum or somebody's, obviously playing the parts that someone else created and it's never going to be, internal that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, I could care less if somebody's a professional drummer.
Yeah, it's a sound.
But it's a sound. It's a sound and a vibe. Yeah.
Especially a band that has toured for years and built a thing.
Exactly. I mean, like, there's several bands that I know that the musicians in that band cannot play with other people. But if when they're together, whew, that's a special thing, and they don't even realize it, And
not only that, it's interesting about when you think about like a hired studio drummer.
Yeah.
Come in and the guy doesn't quite play in the blah blah blah, or it's not up to the producers, whatever pop music grid standards, and we're going to replace it.
Yeah.
But it can also be interesting because people get to know that sound on the record.
Yeah.
And then they go see the live band and it's like not the same thing. And you're like, it's not what I know from the record. But even though that might be more of the band vibe,
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that I think we as a society have done a disservice to because I mean, man, I love the grid. I love it. But I feel like we have done a disservice to listeners at large by gridding everything, because music is not that, like in general,
Yeah.
I mean, some music is. I love electronic music. I love like right down the middle pop music. But if you listen to like disco, like that's moving,
Yeah.
It's like even like that 2 and 4 stuff that feels, man. somebody told me like the, like there was a drummer I saw. Like, I'm not gonna mention his name because I don't. This may sound like a diss, but it's not at all. Like he was not playing in any sort of metronomic time, but it was the earth. It was not in time, but it was fucking in time. You know, it was like so good. And
it was really eye-opening for me. One of my first tours, I got to open for Ben Folds 5, and watching that band, and Darren, I don't remember his last name right now, but that band would move like this, together, and it was like, every night it was like, oh, here comes the bridge of that tune, and man, that was so eye-opening because he was such a badass man, and like, you know. Like he was playing these vintage Ludwigs, which in '99 was like not cool.
That's not cool. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And he had like old cymbals, but goddamn, that band was so badass, and they would move like that. And I was like, for me, I was like, oh man, okay, it's that's really interesting. That's an interesting perspective. Yeah. This band moves together, and that's cool. Like you start to get into like, oh, the bridge slowed down because it should.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that's like the really special thing. It's like I feel like people are missing that now because everybody thinks that because editing is really hard, and that's really why things have gotten to the grid, you know. Yeah. But I feel like if you're a band and if you have a band and you have say, I feel like try and see what you can do without that. See where you guys land in that situation, and see if it feels good. If you can like layer on top of it, you know. But in order to, if there's no consequence, then it doesn't matter. You know, like just try stuff out. You know, especially now, everybody has like some sort of a recording situation.
So, as a producer, are you cool to let things go, like time wise, a little?
Yeah, it depends on the situation.
Sure.
But I mean, for example, I'm working on this record right now where not the one I'm working on at the moment, but working on this record where a lot of what's happening in the music is definitely not in time. It's like we're using like weird tape loops, and that is setting up the vibe. But the one thing that is in time is like me, playing the drums. And the vocals, basically drums, bass, and vocals. That's what's in time, and everything else is just floating and kind of.
But do you feel like your time feel is influenced by these things, or are you trying?
Yes. Yeah, it is. Because there are certain things that happen, especially with tape loops. Like something will pop out. You'll be like, I want to accent that thing, or or that sets the time. That is what sets the time, you know. Yeah. But also but I'm a person who also works with a lot of improvised music and jazz records. And
but that's a perspective that you have because you do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, jazz time feel is very different than pop time feel.
Yeah, 1,000%.
That's that's part of you.
Yeah. And I love, like I said, I really love pop music. It just, if a song is well written, I love songs. Like lyrics are the first things that I listen to when I listen to a song. Like then I listen to like the drums, but it's usually the lyrics and the melody that I'm like, oh, that's dope. Oh man, there's some dope stuff happening in the drums after that, but it's like, it's always been that way since I was a kid. Anyway, because like, especially if like a lyric says something, I'm just like, that is the weirdest stuff. It'll take me out of a song right away.
If you think it's not
if it's not good, yeah. If I think it's bad, I'm just like, no. It's like I don't even care what the drums are doing, man.
That means it's very hard to find good music for you.
No, I think that there's a lot of good music out there, but
I do too. But you know what I mean?
Like, I know.
Lyrically, things can be.
Oh yeah, that's really funny. Yeah. But luckily, I'm around a lot of insane lyricists.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, have you listened to that new Maddie Diaz record?
Yeah.
Man, I literally I was playing I played a record release with her.
Hmm.
I was literally crying on stage the entire time.
I mean, I remember seeing her at the bootleg. Was that 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I don't know, for the first time,
Yeah,
and be like, oh,
yeah, no, she's
wow,
nuts.
yeah,
Yeah, one of my closest friends, literally one of the best songwriters ever. I think. I think she's getting some due now. I think it's not gonna doesn't compare to like what she should get. But that being said, like literally, I was crying on stage because you, you know I've been friends with her for a long time, so like I've seen the whole thing
hmm,
and heard the songs while she was writing them and blah blah.
yeah,
Anyway, but that being said, like her time feel is nuts. Like it's she has
uh,
she has like a weird thing, but it really works.
yeah,
You know, it
yeah.
really works. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
but more on some recording stuff. I mean, anyway, any other questions? I don't know.
No, I mean, man, I think with any of these things, we could talk for like hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
But
is there anything specific that you're like
no, man,
wondering?
I love this perspective that you've given, like, because you're producing more. You're sitting in Electric Lady, and a lot of like what I'm talking about is like home stuff. But like, I love that, like, you're kind of. I feel like you're kind of sitting 50-50 right now, and the producing perspective is really interesting. I feel like you're encompassing everything between engineering, drumming, thinking about songs, working in different spaces. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
man, but I think it's really important for. This is really dumb because and we probably talk about. You've probably had people mention this all the time. As drummers, if we're recording at home, really, the first thing you should do after getting an interface is just treat your room. First thing, first thing, first thing, first thing.
Hmm.
And it's not as expensive as most people think.
Hmm.
Just build the stuff. I have panels in my studio right now that I built out of some bookshelves. You know,
Right.
it's not hard, and it's the first thing because like that's where your sound is going to come from. Your sound is not your drums. Your sound is the room. That's really at least that's what I think.
Cool.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, because like because it gets into the close mics. Even if
Does.
you're
Yeah.
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 And I feel like people don't notice that. Like, oh yeah, like well, I just use the close mics and then I'll like add some reverb in order for room sound or whatever. And I'm just like, no. Like this is it's very different. It's
Hmm.
like the close mics have a tone to them because of your room. You know.
Right.
So and I feel like that's something that's really missing from a lot of people's home recordings. I mean, like producer I work with a lot, he showed me some home recordings that a drummer sent him, and they just sounded flat and lifeless.
Hmm.
And it wasn't necessarily it wasn't because like he's just going straight into an interface or whatever. It was just his placements of things. It just didn't make any sense. And then he was like, oh well, I don't think like the producer would have to do so much work in order just to get it to base level.
Create a vibe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I feel like like with what we do, it's like I said, everything is subjective, but it's like you you can't be afraid. I think especially if you're sending stuff out, you can't be afraid of doing something too dope. I feel like just like I feel like you have to like okay, yes, there's a like yes, you want to send people stuff
Yeah.
so they can work on it. Well, if you're gonna do that, well, just have just send them two sets of stems,
Yeah.
for the tune. But
Yeah.
like, come
Never has
on.
anyone had their mind blown and send it back and say no, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, so it's I feel like the music industry has made a lot of musicians very timid.
Mm.
And I feel like at this point, the special things are all of the mistakes. The special things are when you when there's a confluence of a bunch of different things that you're trying to do, like it's just, that's like everybody's done everything at this point. So why not just try stuff, Like I'm not reinventing the wheel. Like I'm not like even when I was doing Haley's record, like that was like a really unique thing that happened. But I think that the only reason that it happened that way is because of the people that were in the room. It was because,
they allowed it to happen.
They allowed it to happen. And they were trusting. They're like, oh yeah, like, well, this is a thing. Okay, this feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Great. It's not, and it was still like it's like a edgy pop record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess it was like considered alternative, but what are genres? Genres are just, Anyway,
it's a good record.
Yeah. But but at least that's one. Those are a couple points that I want to like at least give your audience, because I feel like Also, another thing I will say to drummers out there: figure out what you like. Like, don't base your stuff based on what you think people want of you.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out what you like, because when you do what you believe in or what you like, the things that you want to do will come to you. Like, I cannot stress that enough. I know so many musicians that play a very specific way because they believe it will get them work. But they hate it, or like,
right.
And nobody's ever, and people call them, they work.
Yeah.
But they work because they're just another person in the room, not because they are them. So they're kind of disposable.
Technically good, but
yes,
not necessarily bringing.
Yeah, they're not elevating. They're
Yeah.
And I feel like like we have a lot of I really want to stress that to people. Just like really find out. I mean, people told me I sucked forever until like they stopped.
They didn't. Come on.
No, I'm dead serious. Like I dropped out of school because like somebody.
You know what? We talked about this. I remember that.
Yeah. Like one of my teachers. Not my teacher. One of the people at the school told me, I asked for a scholarship. They told me, we don't give scholarships to people who we don't think are going to be successful. And I dropped out of school immediately.
That's some insane shit, dude.
Yeah, it is. But, that being said, like, and then even after that, people, like there was a number of years where I was like really trying to do the thing that like I would see somebody do a thing and I'm like, well, I think that's a vibe. I like, maybe I should do that, blah, blah. And then I would kind of emulate. And then at a certain point, I was like, I don't really like doing that. Then what you got, podcast guest that you had recently, Jason McGurr.
Uh-huh.
Like, but then I listened to like Transatlanticism, and there was a good 2 years where I played just quarter notes on everything. And I was just like, yes.
Yeah.
Duh.
Right? Those ride cymbals, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then
totally.
and everybody was just like, yo, I don't know how you're doing this, but literally every gig, I was just like, on like every song, and then people were just like, what? That's dope. And that was like the moment in time where like people were like hiring me the most.
Is that still a thing for you? Do you go to
I love the quarter note. Yeah. I mean, like I do it. I do it more on like, especially on layers.
Sure.
But yeah, it's definitely a thing. Yeah. Thank you, Jason. I mean, I've talked to him about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Well, dude, thanks.
Yeah, no problem, dude.
Good to see you, man.
I'll also be in LA in October, so like, let's hang.
I will be here. Let's get coffee, whatever. Yeah, man. I know you're such a. I was thinking about this before. You're such a great hanger, and I mean that in the most sincere way. Not as like a networker. You're such a great hanger because like a couple times we hung, you're like, when you were living here, it's like, hey, dude, what's up? Hey, man, what are you up to? Oh, nothing. Hey, man, I'm going to jump in an Uber and come over.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And I talked to Musty, Matt Musty, like, I don't know, recently, and you're like, oh yeah, Aaron Steele just landed in town. He's gonna take a Uber over from LAX, and we're gonna hang out. I'm like, you're just,
Yeah.
I just love that about you, man, because like that is not my nature,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I just love that about you. And I'm like, I gotta fucking
man.
take a cue from that. You know,
I mean, well, I mean, I think if you want to see somebody, you got to make some effort, you know?
yeah,
And, you know, because I mean, everybody's in their bubble, you know? And
yeah,
you know, I have my own bubble, but like, this is something I learned. It's kind of a long time ago, but it became very clear to me again, and like a few years ago, and then it even more clear during COVID. Like, you don't know when you're not going to see people,
yeah,
so you have to make sure that they know that you care about them. It doesn't it doesn't matter if they're just a friend. It doesn't matter whatever. It's like the people that I involve in music, life, whatever. If they were an inspiration to me, which you have been, so thank you for that.
thank you.
You have to let
Likewise,
people. You have to,
that's mutual. Yeah,
but that you have to let people know, because you never know when you're not going to be able to, and that's like it's such a big deal to me. It's like, you know,
yeah.
And yes, especially after the last few years that we've all had, you know.
Yep.
Anyway, but that's you know, my sentimental ending.
Hit the cap. There it is, man.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too, man.
There, man.
Yeah.
I love that you're sitting in an electric lady and about to get crazy.
yeah. I mean, it's very, very softly crazy.
Yeah. Hey.
Anyway, but yeah, man. I'll give you a shot when I'm back in town.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too.